By a quick show of hands, how many of us here have been to a blind date? Come on, let's be honest. Guys. Okay, fair. So that's very interesting. Thank you for participating, because today I'm going to be telling about the single semi-blind date that earned me an engineering degree. Now I'm sure you're asking yourself several questions. One, what's a semi-blind date? Two, how did it earn me an engineering degree? And I'm pretty sure there's someone out there saying, I should be probably going on more blind dates, isn't it? So to take you back right to the beginning, I'll take you back to the year of 2009. So a friend of mine thought it was a great idea to set me up on a semi-blind date with a crush of mine. Now you can imagine how nervous I am approaching this blind date, but he convinces me otherwise. And I'm like, look, I'm a courageous person. I like to try new things, so let's do this thing. So I call it a semi-blind date because typically in a blind date, the two individuals would have never seen each other before. But not with me, baby. I'd done my research proper and thorough. Well, actually, I just looked at some of the pictures on social media. But when the day arrived, I was equipped. I'd seen her on social media and I was excited. A bit nervous, so to sort of calm the nerves, I stole my dad's cologne, as one does. Then I make my way to the venue. So the plan was that my friend was going to be there, introduce the two of us, and then let us be. So I make my way to the venue, and surely my friend is there. I greet him, and a gorgeous, gorgeous young lady walks into the door. She looks somewhat familiar. This might just be her. So surely she approaches us, and my friend introduces us. And you can imagine how my heart feels at this point. All you can hear is just kudum, kudum, kudum. He introduces us, we exchange pleasantries, and we start walking. It wasn't long into the walk that I ran out of things to say. And now I'm thinking, he's out here, and I'm thinking, think quickly, and I remember thinking, ask a question. And I'm like, so, are you into wrestling? I don't know why I thought of wrestling. It's the first thing that came to mind. I'm a big Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kind of guy, I was telling her. And she burst out laughing to my surprise. And it was in that laughter, that sweet, sweet laughter. I'll never forget her laughter. That's when the first lesson landed. When in doubt, stay curious. You see, in that moment of me asking about wrestling and her laughing, I got a bit of feedback. And I thought, this thing is going well, right? So fast forward a couple of years later to my first year engineering maths class, which actually had more pictures and letters than it had numbers. I don't know why they call it engineering maths to this day. And I'm absolutely bewildered. You see, in high school, while some of my student peers were busy going to maths class, I was building biceps and trying to be usiakolis. When they were learning about complex graphs and learning about complex equations, I was busy in the gym doing leg day. So fast forward a few years later, in first year engineering class, and I'm absolutely bewildered by everything that I see in this engineering maths class. Sitting in class with kids who were first in their grade, first in their region. Absolute academic high achievers. There were kids who had 6 A's, 7 A's, 9 A's. I thought there were 7 subjects in high school. I don't know how they got 9 A's. So in these moments, I felt absolutely out of my depth. And to be honest, I was doubting, do I actually belong in this engineering maths class? I doubted myself. And then the first lesson came. When in doubt, stay curious. And so instead of being threatened by all of these brilliant minds around me, I thought, what does it look like if I continue asking questions? What does it look like if I remain curious in this moment and grow and learn from these brilliant minds? And so I went on a bit of a venture. That's what I did. I continued to ask questions. Every class, every tutorial, every extra maths class, study group, I was the guy who was asking questions. Now, a lot of people think that when you ask a lot of questions, people think you're stupid, but I want to debunk this because the more questions you ask, the more knowledgeable you become. The more knowledgeable you become, the more helpful you then also become. So that's how the first lesson, when in doubt, stay curious, served me in my engineering degree. Now let's get back to this date. So her and I are laughing about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and she says, look, I'm not much into reality, I'm not much into wrestling, but I absolutely love reality TV. And I'm like, that's interesting. Tell me a bit more. She says, you know how in The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, there's these complex storylines. Beyond the people who are looking for love, you see tension, you see conflict. And at this point, she was just sounding so smart and becoming more beautiful as the conversation continued. I was just falling in love. So she speaks about this, and her and I get into a bit of a back and forth because I myself absolutely love The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. You see, she was rooting for the tall, dark, and mysterious guy. And on my end, I was rooting for the not-so-tall underdog. So her and I got into this riveting conversation about how it was more useful to be with a tall, dark, mysterious guy, which is not true. I'll stand and say it's not true. I'll stand on my point. And we get into this back and forth, and it's in that back and forth that the second lesson landed. Bond over shared interests. You see, her and I talking about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette actually got us to a point where the conversation became richer. I was able to find out a lot more about who she is, some of her values, and some of her beliefs. So fast forward a few years later to my engineering degree, and I'm surrounded by predominantly white Afrikaans-speaking individuals. And I'm asking myself, how am I going to relate with these individuals? Yeah, sure, we can talk about rugby, but you can only talk about that for so long. And I tried to think, what can I bond with them? How can I get to a point where we're working together as colleagues? And then I started noticing a pattern. Throughout the engineering faculty, there are a lot of people who are wearing superhero branded t-shirts. And I wonder, is there a correlation between engineers and superheroes? And I go tutor and teach myself on the world of Marvel and DC. And what a world did I find. If you don't know, a typical engineer, don't want to stereotype here, but engineers absolutely love their superheroes. Before this, I didn't even know there was a difference between Marvel and DC. I thought anyone who had a cape and had superpowers was a superhero, but no, an engineer will tell you otherwise. And so instead of stepping to someone's room and when I approached them, knocking on a room and saying, hey, do you want to help me with this math problem? I said, hey, who do you think would win between a battle of Superman and Batman? And this conversation allowed me to then enter their rooms. We spoke about superheroes, we spoke about work, but an interesting thing happened. We also spoke about life. Shared values, what we want in life, how similar our backgrounds were, and these conversations wouldn't have been accessible had I not bonded over those shared interests. So that's how the second lesson earned me an engineering degree. Now back to this beautiful lady. We're having these riveting conversations and a back and forth about who's going to win the season of The Bachelorette that season. And in that moment, as we were walking, she starts rubbing her hands on her shoulders. And I don't know about you, but we all know what that means from the movies, right? Luckily, I had a jacket. Of course, she's cold, and I thought to myself, this is my moment to shine. I take my jacket off, I put it over her, and in that moment, our eyes met. I thought about so much in that moment. The kids, the house, matching pajamas, matching socks. I'm getting distracted, sorry. That's when the third lesson landed. Be the solution to their needs. So you fast forward to my engineering degree, and I quickly realized that you don't just need to know what's in the test to pass. You need to have all of the resources that are going to aid you in your academic journey. And so what do I realize? That the rarest commodities are tutorials and answers to tutorials, notes, and other resources you need in university. And because I built all of these networks around me, I had access to those resources, because the only way you could get those resources is one, it's either you buy them, which they were expensive and overpriced, or two, someone lends them to you, because people don't share with people they're not friends with. And so I had access to these resources, and because I had access to all of these resources and these people, I realized that I became the resource, and as a result, became the solution to their needs. That's how the third lesson earned me an engineering degree. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what happened in the blind date, right? So I'm at this point, what I call a content broker. You need a past paper, anything you need in university, I'm the guy. Right? You're probably wondering what happened with the blind date. Guys, you ghosted me. Never spoke again, not a word, nothing. But when I had a conversation with my friend afterwards, he's like, dude, what happened? Because I'm telling him, she's not coming back to me. Like, I'm texting her, and in those days, we'll mix it. I'm texting her, nothing. And he's like, recall the events. How did things happen for you? And as I'm recalling these events, as opposed to telling him about a failed blind date, I tell him about these key communication skills that I gained, about these lessons that I learned in the blind date, and about how important communication is. And fast forward, of course, a few years later, I realized that, yes, I might have missed out on the girl, but I gained key communication skills that make me more attractive to future employees, clients, and even partners. And so today, my challenge to each and every one of you is the following. How are we practically implementing and how are we practically equipping young people with these key communication skills? Because that failed blind date for me really served me, not only in getting me an engineering degree, but it continued to serve me in my professional life. And as a result, today, I'm a communication coach. And I teach people to speak, listen, and connect. I teach them how to speak with confidence. I teach them how to listen with empathy. And I teach them how to connect authentically. Because in this day and age that is artificially intelligence-driven, it's requiring us to be significantly more human. And so these key communication skills that we need are going to serve us not only in today, but in the ever-changing world that we exist in. Back to my challenge to you today. In your sphere of influence, how are you equipping young people with these key communication skills? And if you don't have a particular sphere of influence, which I doubt, then I've got an additional challenge for you. Pick one young person. Take them through a journey where you equip them with key communication skills that are going to serve them even outside of the classroom. Key communication skills that are going to serve them in their professional life, in their business life, and in their personal lives. People need to be able to communicate. These skills continue to serve me to this day, and I definitely know that if you pick one young person, they'll serve them for a lifetime. Yabulela Kyan.